All right, so I think we can jump right in. Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar, The Power of Integrating ERP Data, Vyaire's Journey to a Data-Driven Business. I'm Anthony Lapelius, the Vice President of Sales at Wavical Data Solutions. And if you're not familiar, Wavical Data Solutions delivers fast, but more importantly, quality, cloud data and analytics solutions, helping organizations like yours use their data as a competitive advantage. Now, if you're joining us today, you're likely struggling with multiple ERP systems that you've either inherited through growth or maybe inheriting in the future. And while ERP systems are meant to simplify business processes, they can actually make them much more complex if you have legacy solutions or multiple solutions that just aren't consistently sharing data. You also know that integrating ERPs can be extremely complex and costly. So what is your right path forward? Today, we'll talk to our panelists about how Vyaire Medical successfully integrated multiple ERPs as the first step toward building a data-driven foundation. As a result of a clear strategy with the right people, process, and technology in place, they were able to drive measurable business growth, deliver insights at scale, but most importantly, when the world needed help, they helped save lives. Now, as a quick housekeeping note, this will be a 30-minute panelist discussion followed by a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, make sure you put them in the right-hand section in the question box, and I'll make sure to get to as many as I can following the fireside chat. Now, to introduce our panelists. Very excited. Ed, Gopal, and Ann Christelle, thank you so much for joining us today. If you could, give us a little introduction about yourselves, your role, and your companies.
Sure, I'll go ahead. So Ed Rubicki, I'm the CIO at Vyaire. I have over 25 years IT experience, unfortunately for me to say, catches up faster than you would anticipate. The past two at Vyaire as their CIO. Just real briefly, Vyaire is a med device company. So we engineer, manufacture, distribute, sell, service med devices all in the respiratory field. So we make over 20,000 products, everything from a tube that carries oxygen to a ventilator, which unfortunately we've all become much too familiar what a ventilator is. So that's me.
Thank you, Ed. This is Gopal Ramamurthy, Senior Director for Analytics and Enterprise Data Management at Vyaire, and it's been an interesting journey here at Vyaire. We'll talk about it in depth, part of this webinar. In terms of my portfolio, I think I've been with the data and analytics for the last 21 years, implemented similar solution and handled similar challenges in previous organization at a different level. So really excited to be part of this webinar.
And I'm Ann Christelle Graham, Chief Revenue Officer at Talent. Talent is a data integration and integrity software company. We focus on resolving data chaos, ensuring that companies can trust the data that they use to make critical decisions. And I'm really excited to be here today with our customer, Vyaire, as well as our partners, Wavical, to share a little bit about how we work together. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all three of you joining us today. Ed, let's just kind of set the stage here. Tell us a little bit about how Vyaire ended up with a dozen ERP systems.
So, Vyaire is an aggregation of a bunch of different companies. So, in 2018, Vyaire was a spinoff from Becton Dickinson, a much larger med device manufacturer. And over the past, 40, 50 years that Vyaire's products have been around, it's changed hands and changed names numerous times, almost every maybe 5 years or so. So it seems like every time the company was either sold or carved out to a different shareholder, it ultimately started to just inherit things. Unfortunately, one of them was ERPs. So every time we either bought a product line or Vyaire was spun out to somebody else, there was generally a new ERP. And the interesting part is it never seemed to stay long enough with one company where the problem got resolved. So we just continue to multiply those ERPs. Almost every product line or every version of the company had one.
Wow. And we see this a lot across a lot of different organizations as they're growing. They're adding more of the solutions from the companies that they're purchasing or acquiring, right? So there's a lot of challenges that probably kind of fall into that. Help explain some of the challenges that arose from having so many, unintegrated systems.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when Vyaire broke off and became a standalone company, it's now, it's kind of easy to change the name on the top of the building, but everything else seems to still function the same. So, in a certain pocket of the company that uses a certain system, it's like how they were operating 15 years ago when they maybe were owned by Baxter or Cardinal Health or somebody else, because these were the companies that owned this division at certain points. So, yeah, again, when you're tackling the challenges that we had, your business is, even though under one brand, it runs very, very fragmented from the beginning. So our challenge was to figure out how to reduce that fragmentation, how to get a single view, because that's where the company was having to operate.
Yeah, just to add to what Ed had mentioned, just to give some color. I was brought in by Ed, specifically to deal with this, interesting, I would say, huge challenge. And, then I came in, I was surprised with a lot of factors, which I can, keep talking for the entire day. But just to give a summary, a very, very crucial thing is, a visibility of your business, right, to run a company. And, a typical reporting available in pretty much every company of whatever size is daily sales, right? We didn't even have a way to get our daily sales every single day. I mean, you would get it like in a frequency of 2 to 3 times a day, because there are like people around the world, about 18 to 20 folks had to put this report together, because we were spread out around the globe. And it's just funny that daily sales, you get it like 3 times a week, right? So just that actually kind of summarizes the complexity we walked in, and the disconnect between the ERPs, and which we're going to get into a little bit more in depth. I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, and that's hard, for any sales leader or really any business leader that's looking for those sales numbers or trying to get the reports pulled, expecting it daily, getting it throughout a week. That's really tough. And Christelle, from your side, Vyaire can't be alone here. What are some of the other common issues or challenges that you're seeing with some of the other talent customers?
Yeah, no, Anthony, you're right. They're not alone. I think just about every company we meet with has some form of that infrastructure that Ed and Gopal just went through, built over time, patched together, M&A activity, growth, change in technology and availability of technology has created a completely different environment for businesses to navigate through. And that creates a challenge for the people that use that technology to run the business, as well as the users that need the data inside to manage the business. What's interesting is that, for everybody that's dealing with this today, they're trying to make business critical decisions on data that they can't 100% trust, and that they're betting their businesses and their futures on data that's statistically proven to be really bad data. And really, if I can sum up the challenges, it really boils down to 3 critical things. One is the accessibility of the data. It's very hard for companies today to actually find all the data in the various systems that exist within the organization. So access is a challenge. Integrity is a challenge. Being really, making sure that the information and the data itself has quality throughout it, that you know where it came from, that who's touched it, that you've got the most recent, most accurate data in the best system of source. Those integrity challenges exist in just about every company. And then that leads to really the third piece, which is trustworthiness. And when you're trying to make really critical business decisions, you need to trust the data. You need to trust the health of the data. That's a huge challenge for companies today. And the stakes are pretty high as companies are looking at making decisions that are about their business running well, all the way through to, as you mentioned already, saving lives.
Yeah, and that's big, right? If you can't really trust the data, or don't know if you can trust the data, how do you know you're making the best possible decision for your go-forward strategy as a company? I see this a lot across all of our clients as well. It's kind of a starting point. Where is the data? Can we trust it? And how can we move forward utilizing that to derive the right insight? Ed, on your side, I'm sure these challenges cause you see these similar type challenges. Have you had to address these similar issues, or what have you seen from your end?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, when I joined Vyaire, I mean, everybody was fairly new. Like I said, I had 0 people in the data discipline. Gopal was kind of employee number 1 there, and then he built a team. But it was clearly evident, even without any people or without any technology in that area, what was going on just by my experience. And like Ann Christelle had articulated, you know, Vyaire was a company that, you know, was my analogy was it's like driving a car, you know, at night, no lights, and with the windshield blacked out. At some point, we were going down the road, but we had no real indicators of, you know, what we were about to face and what actions we should take. So, you know, what we found is there was just a lot of people grabbing data, putting it in Excel and doing the best they can. You know, so when I came on, it was a pretty easy identification that this was not going to be sustainable for very long. And, you know, the reality was the company got itself quickly into a position of not having the right metrics to make the right data, and some, you know, negative things on the company happened. So it kind of further justified the strategy that said, look, we need to build something. We need to build a team. We need to get some skills, and we need to build a center of excellence around this with the right technology platforms and the right partners, so that we actually have data that we can trust and use. And, you know, I didn't even have to ask twice. I mean, it was a just go as fast as you can. Because, you know, our CEO at the time, our CFO, I mean, they absolutely knew what they were lacking. They obviously just didn't, and they knew what they wanted. They just didn't know how to get there, but that was my job, and that was then ultimately Gopal's job.
Yeah. Well, you know, kind of working through that, you know, from where you were getting the Excel spreadsheets, that's a change around the organization. But to put in a modern data architecture with the right partner and right platform, that's critical. Maybe Ed, and Gopal, if you could kind of walk us through the solution here, so we can kind of see how this modern data architecture was built and how that, you know, helped moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to let Gopal
sure.
handle this one. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I think it's you know, really cutting edge architecture, which, you know, I think more than me, you know, my enterprise architect will be really proud to present all day long, and he's so proud of this architecture. But you know, before jumping into the architecture real quick, I want to, you know, give a big, you know, kudos to Ed on creating a pillar for such a, you know, like $1 billion organization that is completely focused on, you know, data and analytics. Typically, you know, this particular team sits under application, or, you know, one of the pillars has like a smaller team. But I mean, Ed quickly understood this problem, and him and I worked, you know, in the past together as well. So it was so easy for him to, you know, basically justify that it has to be its own pillar. And then he brought me in, you know, exactly to lead that pillar. So I mean, the pillar was, you know, just to get some reporting capability. You know, that was kind of the day one goal, and we grew into, like, you know, more than 50 people team now with multiple, you know, facets of things we do in the data integration side. So kudos to, you know, Ed's vision there. Definitely, you know, I want to call it out. Getting into the solution architecture, you would call it, you know, kind of a typical, you know, 4-layered architecture, where you're talking, you know, you're bringing the data from source. The traditional architecture would be, you know, you want to get the data from source, assemble it, and then you want to, you know, build some, you know, kind of your traditional data warehouse fact tables, and then you visualize it. We just took a little bit of a different approach here, and we said, you know, let's look at it more from the cloud perspective and see, like, how can we, you know, accelerate this with the number one right partner, right? So that's when Vavical came into picture. And you know, they have a good history, you know, in terms of delivering value for me in the past. And you know, I had multiple companies evaluate, and Vavical stood out. So that's how we started the journey. And then obvious choice again on the integration. You know, we had multiple vendors. I really don't want to call it out, some big vendors out in the market, but you know, talent stood out in a lot of areas in terms of, you know, ease of use, you know, a lot of talent available in the market, and you know, even the cost, how they right sized it for us to start, because we were taking a platform approach instead of saying, hey, I'm going to build one solution just to handle my, you know, problem on sales reporting, right? We took a platform approach and said, we're going to build a digital platform. This potentially can scale beyond corporate, and it can become a reference architecture for digital in the future. That was, again, you know, its vision was about, like, hey, let's build something, but that doesn't have to be, you know, solving one or two problems. It should be a beyond, you know, just one or two problems, more like a platform approach. then the whole thought process changes here. If you're going to do a platform approach, then you're thinking more like, out and out cloud architecture. And that's exactly are what we are. There is really, it's a completely serverless architecture. There is no server literally all the way from starting, where we have remote engine for talent. It's in cloud. And then that's where we start our ingestion process across variety of ERPs, all the way from SAP down to some of the ERP you would have never heard, like Pointman, Made to Manage. I have never heard in my lifetime, but all kind of ERPs. But if you have a good integration engine like Talent, you really don't have to worry about it because they provide the respective adapters to go after those ERPs. Then comes AWS into picture, where we use S3 as our data lake, and then further we actually built our, I would say, data models, like the subject area based data models in Redshift in AWS, where we do a lot of transformation, bringing data together, because you can imagine, we had 12 different ERPs. The data structures are different, the way things are tracked are different, so aligning that is not easy. So heavy work on the integration side, which actually translated into reporting. We used primarily AWS QuickSight for our reporting, but the platform, if you look at it, the ingestion framework, developed by Wavicle was standard. It doesn't matter, what you're using. And then our data lake is standardized. And then you have a standard, data warehouse, data mart, you can call it. And then how we visualize this information is standardized. So the same platform, you can just take it and then make it like a SaaS for our digital products. How would you want to do it? So the real emphasis on this architecture would be the platform approach we took. I can go on and on about this, but at a high level, that's basically how we came up with this architecture.
Yeah,
No, that's great. I appreciate you kind of walking through that with us. Now, I can imagine going from 12 ERPs, Excel files going back and forth, back and forth. This is a big change that's happening here. What were some of those challenges, Gopal, that you saw that your team went through, and what did you do to address them?
Yeah, before that, Ed, you wanted to make a comment.
I just want to add one thing. Thanks, Gopal. The platform approach is sometimes a bit risky, right? I mean, I think we've all been, for those of us in technology for a while, there's a little bit of the if you build it, they will come, and that doesn't always happen. So I would say, just to modify what we had, we had one thing going for us, is that this company had essentially nothing. So there was nothing we were changing from other than Excel. So I won't say nothing, but it really, there was no data warehouse, there was no data lake, there was no data integration. So all that was net new that allowed us to kind of select best and breed. The second point is, while we definitely took a platform approach, I'd call it an iterative platform. So it wasn't, while the first phase was, somewhere in the 6-month range to start seeing some key results, but that had more to do with the magnitude of systems and challenges we were dealing with to get there. Now that we gotten there, and Gopal will talk a little more, within the next 4 or 5 months of the platform being live, I mean, we went from an initial set of 5 to 10 KPIs to well over 40 different dashboards, helping to run our business within a very short period of time. So again, we did it iteratively, and I think it's a key point to take away.
I love this story. Ed, Gopal, you mentioned that your team's proud, and I think they should be. I think that this is, approaching this the way that you guys did, and Ed, going down that path of a platform, is to me just really visionary. What you mentioned it, a lot of companies have a hard time with it. A lot of executives have a hard time, really stepping back and saying, is this the right thing to do? Should we invest in this way? Or should we tackle the thing that's, that's ahead of us and in front of us? The reality is, the way I see this, what you've done is you've really positioned yourself and in your ability to be able to tackle the future. You've future-proofed the business. You already just now mentioned a little bit in terms of some of the things that you're doing differently now and looking at as you're coming into your next use cases and trying to figure out how you can leverage the data sets and leverage that infrastructure that you built. And those are the kinds of things that going forward with a digital platform as opposed to looking at it from an individual project, that's what that can afford you, is being able to continue on and recognize that it's an ongoing investment, it's an ongoing improvement opportunity that's going to pay off in dividends long term. So I think that's such a great way for you guys to have gone about that, and I know it's already paid off for you.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, and I love the quote that you have and that flashed up here. And I think it, Anthony, I'll take it. Maybe I'll preempt your next question, but I'll go off of Ann Christel's quote here, in that what we couldn't predict when we launched this was really what Vyaire and the rest of the world went through with COVID. Again, being a respiratory company selling respiratory products pre-COVID, we were still getting our footing on the market, and having well-established products, but being a new company again presents a lot of challenges. And then all of a sudden we're thrown, obviously, in the middle of a massive pandemic. And I always want to caveat when I talk about this is that, look, I'm talking about the business perspective. If anyone watching or anyone listening has had personal issues or family issues with this, I never mean to demean anything. So I want to just lay that caveat out there. This is obviously a big, serious thing, but from a pure business perspective, being a respiratory company, this was the future we couldn't predict. I mean, we couldn't predict a pandemic. We couldn't predict the way a company like ours needed to respond during that. Some of our ventilator lines, we went from producing 30 a week up to 600 a day. And all of the things we had to do as a company to change to meet that demand to help in this pandemic, much of it, was all immediately being driven. So all the way back to the question you were asking, Anthony, before we kind of jumped all over your questions. You were kind of asking about the change piece, and I do remember Gopal and I talking and saying, boy, even though they had nothing, I mean, even if you have only Excel, human change management's not an easy thing, and people want to hold their Excels. And I remember having those conversations around February. By the time I'd say it was April, I think everybody had dropped that. And I don't think I was in a meeting that didn't mention we called it Insight, our Insight portal. I don't think I was in a meeting that didn't mention Gopal. So, I mean, this is how quickly and rapidly, this capability became important to our company, because now we could not only just see things like sales and where the products are going, we could see down at the factory level immediately, and how quickly were we producing ventilators and what was the yield on the manufacturing floor. And I mean, these things just a few months before were such dreams of people within Vyaire that was never going to be realized. But again, because we had that platform and to the quote that's on the screen, it allowed us to pivot in so many different ways as this crisis hit us. Gopal and I just left a call that was the top 70 people in Vyaire doing a quarterly kind of review of their goals. And our CEO, openly said, we are making the Insight platform the primary single source of all of our data.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Going from having all those disparate systems, now being able to have the shop floor to the top floor all speaking, where you can actually drive those decisions. It definitely did help get you prepared for the amount of influx that you got, which, in turn definitely helped a lot of people, which is very key here. So obviously you bring in the right partners that bring in the right technology like Talent as a platform. Help us understand, now that you have that together, what were some of the immediate results that your team saw?
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple, but definitely Gopal jump in. I mean, from a business perspective, again, we were able to hit many of the demands that the market all of a sudden had for us. So it wasn't just about, hey, let's produce more, let's get a little more efficient. It was, we were in a world health and still are in a world health crisis. And especially at the time in let's say the first wave of this came, which was March, April last year, the demand for ventilators spiked like it's never spiked in the rest of, probably history. The ability for us to get to that 600 a day from 30 a week was highly based on this platform. Again, our other systems had to scale with it, the actual production systems, our people. So I don't want to make it sound like the platform did all the work. There was a tremendous amount of work to get there. But again, my driving the car with the lights off analogy, well, you could pile a bunch of people in that and it could be a big bus and you can still have the lights off, right? So you need to have the right data and analysis going. And Gopal's team did that, like I said, at the factory floor, at our customer level, just financially, being able to track the finances coming into all these different systems, so we actually understand our revenue and our margin and those kind of things. Gopal, any other key things that come to your mind around the KPIs and the things that your team was able to do?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Ed. I mean, starting from, I would say if I have to go by subject area by subject area, the first thing we tackled is, of course, visibility of, the company. Are we making money or not, right? So we started from there, and then the journey went on, and to handle more customer focus. The Wyaire is all about customer focus, right? Because we are in saving lives business. So we take our open order back orders very seriously. To make sure we put our customers ahead of anything and everything. From that standpoint, there was a lot of work done to make sure we get the right visibility of all the back orders, and how do we come up with dates for our customers so that they trust and say, okay, whatever you're committing, you will meet those dates. So but our people on the field don't even know like how to even come up with that date or commitment. Have we done that 100%? No, but we have a good start globally now with this platform, because without this platform, it's basically like for just one product line you could have like 10 different dates, and people will be like, okay, which one should I pick? So that is in the area we actually focused a lot. And then inventory and different subject areas, we made a lot of impact in terms of KPI. But this is a global solution, not localized for US or Europe or Asia. So that's where I think it brings the element of how do you not only ERP integration, there is a people layer behind it, more from the beyond technology. You have the people layer. When I say people layer, it's about people who are supporting the technology as well as the people who are consuming the technology, bringing them all together, and then assembling them to one goal is not an easy task, because there are people who with us for years with different mergers. There are people who are brand new, so you have different culture, different people with different mindsets. So aligning them along with achieving this was a huge a step up for us. But now that people see the result, I think it's getting a little bit easier, like what Ed said. Our CEO called out and said, yeah, this is a global solution going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly amazing to see how you both and the rest of your team were able to manage that as COVID hit, and be able to kind of move on a dime and be able to make sure that you're meeting the demand, right? It's actually crazy to see. So we appreciate everything that you and your team have done. Help us understand, as you were developing KPIs and, business was changing, as the demand grew, did you have any other challenges with scaling? This has to be, a big platform that's scaling across the globe. Were there any challenges that you did run into?
Technical challenges, Gopal is going to know better than I am, so I'm going to let you take that one. I think, team challenges were a bigger one, and maybe not exactly a direct heart of your question, but that is, look, I'm going to give it right back to you, Anthony, and Christelle, choosing the right partners and choosing the right technologies, and AWS, who's not on the line. I didn't worry about the technical scale so much, because we had the right capabilities. So we never missed a beat on that. Having the right partnership as well allowed our team, because Gopal's team is not huge. It's a relatively small team. It's highly leveraged with Wavical. So your ability to help us scale to that too. I mean, we went from probably 5-6 people up to almost 40 people cranking away simultaneously on this platform. And I think that's one other key piece, right? We could have a team working on finance metrics and another team working on manufacturing metrics and different capabilities. We even had teams working on more digital products all at the same time, all on the same platform. So I don't want to say there were no challenges. Of course there were. I think the past 6 months were a little bit of a blur for me, but those weren't the things that, if I think back, that I had reservations about or that I really worried about at night. Challenge of this platform or the vendors scaling up were not those.
Yeah,
and when we're talking about the scaling here too, I think I want to underscore something that I don't think anybody has said so far at this point. This is what you guys did is you during the pandemic took all the investments that you just made and increased your production 20 times. 20 times from, what was it, 30 ventilators per week to 600 per day. That is incredible at a time where there were obviously horrible, health crisis. But in addition to that, also other challenges associated with, logistics and transportation and all the things that you relied on to be able to, build the products that you wanted to build and needed to build to be able to respond to those needs. And it's a fantastic just story of a company really coming together and using digital transformation for good. And so ever since the first time I heard about this story and learned about what you all did, I was just unbelievably impressed. It's last 6 months, you talked about, Ed, that it's been a little bit of a blur. Over the last 6 months, people have really depended on companies like yourselves to make really critical decisions that impact the world in these ways, in this positive way. The investment that you made and the agility that you had, the ability to respond, all those things by making those right decisions early on around a digital platform, around cloud, around things that could help you scale, are just really something to emphasize. And I'm really impressed, and I've been impressed from the day one on this. I'm also really proud that Talent was a part of it, and part of an architecture that allowed you to focus your business on the right things without having to worry about servers and infrastructure and those types of things that can really bog IT organizations down. And that's really the beauty of cloud and these types of scalable systems, is enabling you to make focus your time on what matters most, and that's making the data useful to run your business better. So just really, really incredible story.
Thanks, Christelle.
Yeah, it really is an incredible story. And what I liked hearing most was how there's many different business units, whether it is HR, finance, sales, really anywhere throughout the organization, you start making it more data driven. And one thing I like about Talent and how Wavical works so well together is you build off of use cases that start here, step A, but then build all the way to Z. And it's really cool to see some of this, roll out. Now, for me, I love hearing a different story about, improving the way that data is shared with doctors, nurses, and other practitioners. So if we could kind of pivot to that, I'd love to hear this fascinating story about how you help those doctors, nurses, and practitioners really take advantage of data to really help save lives real time.
Sure. Like a lot of things in the world now, IoT is becoming more and more a part of what we do every day. And at Vyaire, it's no different. So, we now have certain lines of ventilators and even what we call consumables, things like masks and other things that are going to have sensors in them. But our ventilators, we already had a product out there that, that would track the breaths in and out from a patient, and then be able to feed that back into the cloud. And then we could do some analytics and provide that more to doctors. Now, it was the product that Gopal and I inherited there was a bit more, I'll say, near history. I mean, it wasn't a real-time product. It wasn't something that was feeding back. It was more of a historical view on, well, look, as a hospital, you had these 20 patients on ventilators, and if you did this, you could maybe improve their their time of stay or something like that. One of the things as we built this, I'll say the corporate platform, and that's what we've been focused on, these corporate analytics, is it's all the same backbone that helps us now build products for our customers and digital products and software for our customers. So we took this kind of near historical solution and pivoted it over to the new platform. And we now have a pilot program running in hospitals that it is more or less real-time data coming back from a ventilator. And at some point, the ability for a respiratory therapist or a doctor to look at their mobile phone anywhere in the hospital or not in the hospital, anywhere in the world, essentially, and say, well, that patient is ready to come off the ventilator, or change the mix of their, oxygen levels. And I mean, if, I'm not a ventilator expert, but, obviously the key thing to know about them is if you're on one, that means you're not breathing on your own. And the best thing for you to do is get off of it as soon as possible so your lungs can take over breathing. If the therapist or the doctor is not on top of how that machine is helping you, and your body becomes more and more dependent on that machinery, obviously that's taking you the wrong way as a patient. So hours, minutes, even seconds potentially count with a medical professional being able to make that decision for a patient to say, now is the time to do this, and hopefully wean them off of the ventilator. So this solution that we now have piloting in the market, again, is based on all the same backbone of moving data in, moving it into the cloud, pushing it back onto mobile devices for hospital professionals. And we are now starting to build a whole nother set of capabilities for our customers that again, they're digital products. So we're not only now just a ventilator or med device company, hopefully we're a med tech company that's producing both kind of physical and virtual or digital things.
Yeah, and that's great. Great to kind of see that journey. And you said a med tech device company, right? The way I look at it is you're now a data-driven company, whatever way you want to, splice this up. And it's really cool to see, again, starting with the ERP consolidation through more of an MDM type framework, now doing near real time. All that's helped build upon Wavical Data Solutions team, your team, and then using a platform like Talent to actually help process, cleanse the data, transform the data, and land it in a timely manner, right? So when I look at this and, you're moving forward, there's a lot of people I talk to, a lot of customers, clients say they have trouble selling this up to executives. How do I get executive sponsorship to actually get a platform that really can help take us in so many different directions, but the most important direction is forward. So help us understand, did this platform deliver the value expected for your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exceeded value. Even in the middle of all of this, the executive team and the CEO that I used to work for when we started this project changed right before COVID, and we got an almost all new executive team coming in. So if it shows anything of really the power of value, that when you have a solution that's driving and showing value, especially at a data quantitative level, it really doesn't even matter, if you change your CEO and CFO and other executive leaders, they're going to recognize that, and there's going to be some similarity to what everybody's wanting to get, right? I mean, at some point as companies, we're all either selling products or services, and a lot of what we do is similar. So we need the data, we need the metrics. The selling process, I mean, again, I could go on that one for a long time, but I'll sum it up as this. I think it's a mixture of, you have to have the right circumstances. You certainly have to have the right ability to kind of articulate your ideas and what value it'll bring. We are in a show me world, so you have to be able to kind of get to speed to first result pretty quickly and help build your credibility. And then obviously you just have to deliver. So all those pieces, came together for us. We had the right people in the right places, and even the right people willing to listen. And I've had one line that I've used throughout my career: never let a good crisis go to waste. So we jumped on it. We jumped on the crisis of Vyaire needing data. We were able to even jump on the crisis of a global pandemic and really push something that helped both of those in the way we knew it would.
Yeah, just to add to what Ed said, I think that's exactly the opportunity we capitalize. I love that Ed's quote of never let a crisis go waste. We definitely capitalized it a lot, because selling this idea, like you said, for a good company that is running itself as a stretch, imagine our situation, it's going to be even more harder. And driving value, showing like immediate results is one of the key factor, I would say. So we had some level of reporting that can come out of system. Even that wasn't actually centralized. So we didn't jump into the platform and showed value. Right before that, I was one-man army, to be honest. And I had to literally like bring people from different parts of the world to bring the reporting, how it is consolidated, how a true number can be reported, bring some process and standards. That is probably, I would say, our number one win. Parallelly, Ed actually taking that information, making it visible at executive level, saying, hey, here is the first thing we did, we also parallelly started BICOE, Business Intelligence Center of Excellence. And then iterating from there and putting a small solution together and say, if you did this, like again, the sales report, right? I mean, we holistically send it out every single day. What is that one thing, blocking your way, talking to every global, folks, and then, kind of doing small automation just to, prove that, oh, maybe I can listen to this guy, he will help me, right? So just winning that trust slowly, and then you jump into that, a big platform solution, because nobody will accept if you're going to go give them a, I don't know, $1 million estimate and say, I'm going to go to a platform. Here is my idea, right? I mean, you have to win basically business hearts, otherwise nobody will listen to you. So I think it's just inching our way. Now we are like year and a half later, we're talking about the success story, but it took a lot of hard work from, Ed and myself to begin with, along with our business, counterparts, to get us here.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys have brought up so many great points. Today and for the foreseeable future, business is going to be hard for most of us. Every one of our decisions, our customer interactions, every business action that we take is going to be even more important to get right and make sure that we've got the right systems in place with with data that's been cleansed and has quality, and that you know that if you're looking at that information that you can make good business decisions on it, especially when you're trying to make decisions as a doctor. That's a split-second decision that could have some significant meaning behind it, obviously, in terms of interpretation of that kind of data. You've demonstrated here in the way that you approach this that there's just tremendous value to future-proofing your data platform, not only for the thing that is right there in front of you, but also the things that you can't predict, the things that you don't know yet what they're going to be, but they're going to come. It's the one thing that we all know is that we can't predict a future, but we need to be prepared for it because something's going to come our way, and we need to be agile. We need to be able to respond quickly, and in order to be able to survive as businesses and do what we need to do. And speaking of businesses, we've obviously talked a lot about supply chain optimization here, and we've talked a lot about this particular industry where you were able to, go from being, medical devices to medical tech company. I think you just described yourselves as, and kind of making a huge impact in the world, but then also changing your brand to some degree in terms of, who you are and what the types of things that you can bring to the market today that you couldn't a year ago. It's really fascinating. And there are other industries that have had to do the same thing. You take a look at e-commerce, right? Significant impact in this past six months or so in the way that they've had to take a look at retail companies have had to take a look at the way that they deliver their products, the way that they engage with their customers. You can take a look at, obviously, the hospitality business, with hotels and any of those in terms of how they're really trying to figure out how to maintain customer loyalty during a time where things obviously have changed pretty significantly for them. And these are just examples of a couple of industries where, they're heavily reliant on data and heavily reliant on the information at their fingertips to make some pretty critical decisions at critical points in time for how their businesses are going to operate and navigate through challenges that certainly we all see are not ending tomorrow. They're going to be here for a bit longer, and needing to be able to navigate through that. So, and then there's all the compliance regulations too that we haven't really talked about, right? Around all the regulatory and things that come down related to privacy information. There's just so much to start to tackle when you start to peel back the onion in terms of what it means to build a digital platform that can help you truly protect from and plan for the future the best that you can. So I want to congratulate you on everything that you've accomplished. It's just unbelievably, like I think I said earlier, just great vision that really put you in a spot to just be able to navigate through an extremely challenging time in the world and put yourselves in a really incredible position for the future. So awesome work there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I know Talon's, excited about the journey that, they've been on. Wavical as well. We're excited to be a part of this, for the long haul, and looking forward to, expanding some of these use cases with you. So at this point, I know we're about out of time, but we do have a few questions. So if you haven't used the question box, make sure you post your questions there. A few that did pop up is actually two-part question. So the first part is for Vyaire, second is for Talon. So Ed, Gopal, why did Vyaire need a partner to help with this project, and how did they choose the one they chose, Wavical?
I'll give the why. You give the why we chose Wavical, Gopal. I mean, so why do we need a partner? I had mentioned before, Gopal was kind of employee number one in the data team, and we had to quickly ramp up. So we did some hiring on our own, but the scale quickly exceeded what we could do internally. So reasons of speed, capabilities, broadness of expertise, those were kind of the core reasons. Maybe Gopal can answer a little better why Wavical.
Yeah, I think you halfway answered it, Ed, like the speed and the expertise. There are a lot of companies in the Chicagoland who are specializing in analytics, and it's really important. We want a partner who can actually hold our hands along this journey, because it's going to be a really tough journey. We won't even have visibility to requirements to begin with. We will have a high level idea. There will be a lot of changes where we will keep iterating, and then we have to hold hands together and progress. And I mean, a lot of companies, they are more of a structured way they operate, like, okay, here is your scope, the 10 things. The moment you have the 11th thing, they send you a change request, right? So that kind of partnership is really, really needed. And then the second thing is their expertise on good standard platform like Talent, which is a mandatory thing. And then also the AWS platform expertise was like really, really important for us, because that is where we were going to invest all our cloud platform technologies going forward. Combined all this, and then evaluating a few other vendors. I mean, they stood out more from the speed, ease to work with, and then the expertise areas. So I think that is the reason we picked Wavical compared to other vendors in the market.
Yeah, and Christelle, part of that, the second part to that was knowing that you have a lot of clients. What do you look for? When do you position a partner? What do you look for in a premier partner like Wavical?
One of the biggest things we look for is vision. And really it's about having partners that are looking for the same things that we are, which is helping our customers solve really critical business problems. This isn't just about installing technology or building out an infrastructure. It's about stepping back and really thinking about what is it that the companies are going to need, both in the short term and the long term. And that is, I think, one of the things that really, with the way that we work together here with Vyaire, just demonstrated that type of premier partnership that I seek, in our partners is being really thoughtful about how we can help our customers, navigate through all the different things that they might not be aware of. It's one of the biggest things I think you can bring to a customer is you've got the, between Talent and Wavical, we have so many different companies that we work with that have tackled various components of similar types of projects. And so being able to come in and advise and consult and make recommendations, that's what really brings great value. And that's really about having some vision around, how we can help the companies that we work with. Just really going back to something we've already talked about, future-proof. I think it's so critical, so critical.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you, all three of you answering that. How about this, Ed or Gopal, any plans to leverage one or two major ERPs and cut down on the rest of them now that you've consolidated?
We've had plans since day one, and that project has started and stopped a few times to do that. So yes, it's still part of our journey to do. So right now we've actually launched a broader, so instead of just tackling the ERP issue, we have 12 or so ERPs, but we have almost over 300 pieces of software that Vyaire has somehow acquired over its history. And again, for a company that's 700-800 million in revenue, I mean, it's a global company, so it carries some complexity, but it's way too much. So we launched an application rationalization project, which the ERPs will get swooped up into. The ultimate question for us will be, where do we go to tackle that problem? Because yes, I mean, handling it in the data layer is kind of like, cleaning the lake, but not cleaning the rivers of everything coming into it. So, we have been doing, master data management, and ideally we would also like to reduce, those number of sources coming into it as well. But it's going to be like everything else, a bit of a cost benefit for the company to decide if the ERPs or if other software products that we have are the ones that we should go reduce. But we are on kind of a reduction of complexity and transformation plan right now. So I think we will see some movement there. But I mean, right before COVID, we had a project queued up. We had the vendor selected, we had, the estimates, we had everything. Both COVID and having a new CEO, kind of caused us to pivot and hold on that. But like I said, the good thing was having this kind of platform. It doesn't matter if we have 12 today, 16 tomorrow, or 2 tomorrow. At the end of the day, you still need this analytic capability, and it's flexible enough to grow with different systems and shrink back, if that's the case.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Here's another good one for you, Ed or Gopal. Does Vyaire see any opportunities like blockchain to be integrated into ERP systems in the future?
Paul, I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, we do, and we talked about it because we kind of took a backseat on blockchain for the same reason which Ed talked about, and will we look at it again? Oh, for sure. But once we have like that application rationalization, kind of figured out, then would be something we'll look at it. But we would actually look at kind of using the cloud services because now we have a really good platform from the data and integration standpoint. So I mean, anything and everything we are looking at it, we are just first thing we are looking at is, can we actually build on our own with the services and team we have, and then look for the products available out in the market, or buy a minimal product that we can integrate into our current landscape. So definitely there was talks, but it's not an active project. We will definitely get to it probably later part of the year.
One, I won't say related, but also kind of a industry buzzword capabilities, RPA, robotic process automation. We have tapped into that. So again, that was one of the ways we actually had to employ it, a new RPA product to scale up to that 600 a day, because the process to build 30 ventilators a week, as you can imagine, is probably not the most efficient, highly running, high volume process, right? There was paperwork and there were other inefficient things going along with it. So RPA has been a bigger focus for us, and as well in that whole ERP story of potentially tying, either layers of ERP together through a process automation. That's where we've been looking to, maybe bridge some of the gap and gain some efficiencies a little bit more in blockchain.
No, that's great. It's good to see the overall vision and how you're using some of the new technologies that are coming out and how that's adapting your model. So that great answer. I'm glad you're able to kind of tie that in. I know we're about out of time, so let's go with the last question. Gopal, this one is directed right towards you. What would you do differently if you had to start over again?
Oh, I would say not a lot, but definitely we had a lot of learnings from the implementation standpoint. To be honest, there are things I would do differently more from how we approach certain problems. But overall, if I look at it, the architecture and the solution and platform we came up with, there won't be much changes. But approaching certain problems in certain subject areas, I would have tackled it a little bit different. To be a specific, there are things we actually tried to tackle multiple things at the same time. So we started a project to handle like open orders, daily sales, and then we also had inventory and then master data all going at the same time. I mean, the whole team was taxed up, but the demand was heavy and I had to keep up. And I thought having people scaling up or having sub teams will actually do it. But quickly we found out within a month there is so many bottlenecks. There is even though you have like 4 areas, there is only one subject matter expert you will always end up with for this kind of this size of the company. So stuff like that I would actually would have planned it a little bit different, because the outcome was if I would have handled it differently, like handle one at a time and then go fast, would have still taken the same time which it took actually. So that is something I want to highlight.
It's good to hear your experience, and hopefully that can help some of the other engineers or architects on this call kind of see your vision, maybe where you could have done it differently, but at the end of the day, you still got to that end result, which is driving forward. So really appreciate that, and great question. Now, if we didn't get to all the questions, I apologize. I'll make sure that my team reaches out today to help out. I know we had a few others just come in, but really, to conclude, I want to thank you, Ed, Gopal, and Ann Christelle for being a part of this, this conversation. I think it was, very fun, and it was good to kind of see how talent's being utilized in the market, how Vyaire is growing to be a data-driven organization, and how a Wavical really sat in the middle and helped push forward that transformation all as a team. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you for all those who attended and provided some thoughtful questions. We really appreciate it, and at this point, we look forward to driving digital transformation with the rest of you. So thank you for attending, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad to be part of it.
Thank you.